Robin Hood is directed by Otto Bathurst and stars Taron Egerton, Jamie Foxx, Ben Mendelsohn, and among others. And this is the story, another retelling of the story of Robin Hood that you know from the classic literature and everything about the famous guy, hooded figure who robs steals from the rich and gives back to the poor. And basically, this is a new take on the character, which we just called it Robin Hood. This time, it's called, well, we have to abbreviate it as Robin Hood 2018. You know, because 8 years ago,
too many movies. Yeah, Robin Hood. So.
And this one deals with pretty simple, you know, same basic story. You have Robin Hood who ends up. Well, basically, he ends up going to work for, like, in the Crusades as he's basically drafted by the sheriff of Nottingham. And after some stuff goes down where he's in the Crusades, he meets Jamie Foxx's character, who's Little John.
He was in, which is in a Muslim.
Yeah, who was in, I believe they were in Arabia.
They were in Arabia, and basically Little John is on the bad side, and then some shit happens where they get, you know... This is where it gets complicated. Yeah, I'll get into my pros and cons here. But basically, we go years later, and then Little John finds him because of a certain situation that happened, previous war that earned Little John's respect. And basically, he trains Robin Hood into taking down the sheriff of Nottingham and the Crusade.
And helping the peasants.
The peasants, and the Christianity.
And for those of you who haven't seen the movie yet,
we'll go back on the plot. They want to steal from the rich and give to the poor, but the people are using, the religious people, the Christianity people, are using money to finance a war.
Yeah.
The war.
And now there's going to be some heavy spoilers in this, so for those of you who haven't seen the film yet, you have been warned. Yeah. This movie, as just a little backstory real quick. Now, as we know that growing up, this was one of those characters that you hear a lot about in literature, about the famous Robin Hood, who basically goes around and helps the poor people out by stealing the rich and give back to the poor. And growing up, I actually, you know, I've seen various different ways with Robin Hood. Like the one that I remember growing up the most with, the two things was like the one from the Disney version where he's the fox. Yeah, I grew up with that one. But the one I remember the most growing up with was Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves with Kevin Costner.
Which to me is the best telling of Robin Hood out of every Robin Hood film.
Yeah, and that's the movie that really got me into the character a lot. And then also we've had different parodies of Robin Hood too, like Men in Tights,
which I thought was good.
Yeah, I like that one. And so over the years, there's always been different spins on it. And the last two recent incarnations that we've done with for the last few years was 8 years ago. We had the Russell Crowe version directed by Ridley Scott that I saw at the drive-in. And when I saw that version, I was so fucking bored. And that was one that at the time I called the worst Robin Hood film I ever seen. Until we get to this film. Now, and then basically, there's been other incarnations too. Like if you ever seen that show Arrow, they use that character as basically.
So they kind of bring modern times.
Yeah, that's more in modern times. And this movie, from the vibe they're going for, they're still keeping it in the Crusades, but they're still going for like a kind of a modern type of spin on the character itself,
which doesn't blend very well. We'll get to that in a second. But I knew this film wasn't going to be good from the trailers because it just reminded me of like King Arthur from last year.
Yeah,
and we're starting to get these films back again, and they just seem to never get it right each time. Well, upon seeing it, it was 100 times worse than it fucking ended up being.
Oh,
Jesus,
dude.
This was a fucking terrible movie.
This was everything. I already knew from the trailers that this movie wasn't going to be good, but I did not expect this movie to be so excruciatingly bad and so dull the way it played out.
Yeah.
So where do we start with this? Because pros, I can't really think of anything. Yeah. So if someone could tell me if I think of something later, I'm sorry, I can't think of anything right now.
I'm gonna tell you right now. You know, we just got freshly watched it about 30 minutes ago. There was no pros in this film. This shit was just. It was a grueling task to sit in that theater and finish this film.
It was.
I had my doubts of wanting to walk out. I was getting points where we're at my my parents' house for right now because they live down the street from theater just so I could pick up something from their house. I had to take an aspirin. Yeah. This shit fucking hurt my head so fucking bad.
This movie, like, if I have like any kind of pros, like I would have to really. I would say that if there were probably some points where the movie can give you kind of like an unintentional laugh on stuff that on just how stupid it is, but even that's doesn't even work for this movie.
Yeah,
for me. So
all right,
let's go and get into this shit.
Now we did no pros. Here are cons.
Now the movie, where do we start? From the very beginning, I already knew we were in trouble because when the beginning starts, we're already thrown into who Robin Hood is, and we have this weird fucking narration by Friar Tuck, who's telling us that this is basically a different story. And I'm like, okay, who's he talking to? I don't understand this.
Well, he's talking to the audience, and then we get into this thing where he gets a letter to go serve for the fight in the Crusades.
Well, before that, he meets Marion, who's the
yeah. Marion is stealing. She's dressed like Robin Hood.
Yeah, so they already introduced us in the get-go of how he's supposed to relate to that.
And then they fall in love like in 2 seconds.
Yeah, and I'm supposed to buy them like right there. I'm like, oh no, this is not fucking working.
And then you get this montage that you're, I guess you're guessing it could be years passing.
Yeah.
And there it shows like the where they're living at's changing, as in like they've lived together for some time.
Yeah.
And then he gets a letter saying he's been drafted
to go
into the war
by the sheriff of Nottingham.
Yeah.
And then he goes
to go
to the Crusades, and he ends up going there, and basically it kind of really takes a weird turn because then it starts to go into like some type of war movie that, you know, on a different level. If this version was directed by Ridley Scott's version, I probably would have liked this scene a lot better. But the way that it goes along, he's wearing like this type of armor, which I don't know if that existed back then.
And the armor wasn't bad. It was later on.
It was later on. Like, well, we'll get to some of the production problems here, or production design here later, in the costume design. Yeah. But what we're seeing is that he's going the Crusades, you know, trying to take out these like Persian soldiers and stuff. Yeah. And then if he eventually comes across Little John, who's there, and he ends up knocking him out. And then we see that they end up taking Little John prisoner, and then they basically keep him as a prisoner of war. And they negotiate with him, trying to see, you know, they need to give him. They're going to execute the people that are part of they were executing him, and then Lil Jon, like, they all got them all lined up, and Lil Jon notices his son is next up, and they start like, hey, grab him. It's time to cut his head off, and it's Lil Jon's son, and he's basically begging him, don't do it, and stuff, and you got your typical dickhead generals like, fuck it. Saying some modern day lines like, I forgot what the fuck he said, but something I hear more modern times. I wouldn't buy it back then. It was like something, I don't know, the way he said it. I want to know what it is. Basically, because John tries to talk him out and saying, look, I know that there's like 1,000 soldiers or something over there. Yeah. But he's like, that's not good enough or whatever. And so,
but he says some like,
he says some kind of line that this feels out of place.
And then he goes, then you have Robin Hood watching this, and he goes, this isn't right. So he tries to stop him for cutting his son's head off, and then they look at him like a treasoner, so they shoot him, Robin Hood, with an arrow and hurt him, and he's all down. And then they end up chopping the head off of Little John's son, or John's son, and John goes up there, and he's like, are you alright, son?
I'm like, what the fuck?
No shit, his head just got cut the fuck off. Some of the dialogue in this film I'm going to get into, because there's a lot of fucking stupid-ass lines coming out of everybody's mouth.
Yeah. And I don't know if that was the directing or the actual writing that they were given, but the performances don't help either in this.
All right, here's my next complaint. Instead of going throughout the whole film, basically
he ends up going back after the war, and now here's the weird thing is that editing was fucking weird because he's a prisoner on this ship that they're on, and then immediately the next scene we see him go back to his house. I'm like,
well, here's a part. Lil Jon gets his arm cut off, and he doesn't even go ow, and I'm like, what the fuck? He's not even hurt. That didn't hurt. That is. He got his hand chopped off?
I think he did, but I can't remember.
He didn't. He was on the boat like...
Yeah.
I don't think I'd be doing that if my hand
I would be screaming in pain if my shit was cut off.
If my hand was cut off. And then Robin Hood, you get kind of lost because he gets shot with the arrow at the beginning, and then like he's thrown in the slavery boat, and then it pans off. You don't even know how many years later, 4, 10, 12,
it's about 4 years.
4 years, and it shows Robin Hood free, and he goes to his old home and is gone. It's like 30 minutes is missing at this point.
Yeah.
It's like,
Did they fucking... That's what they did with...
Even Little John is walking around, and he's a fucking, like, a Muslim. He plays the Muslim side, and they're supposed to be enemies. He's walking free, walking around. I don't get... He would be enslaved.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. Like,
Enslaved.
that's the same kind of shit they did with Legend of King Arthur last year with the editing. The editing's very like that in this, where you went from a scene like that to him back there, and I'm like, how the fuck did he get there?
And I don't buy that Little John being the Muslim and an enemy to the Christianity thing. If you guys don't know your crusade, that's what happened. It was Christianity versus Muslims. And you have Little John, who was obviously a slave and noticeable. He's walking around Nottingham, and it's like, I would think you'd be enslaved.
That's what I'm saying.
How the fuck did you get free?
Yeah, but anyway, the rest of the story deals with him training him.
He gained his respect because he goes, "You try to save my son."
But
so
during
help together.
But before that, he has to deal with his issue with Marion, because Marion has moved on and has now moved on with helping the peasants in the streets and stuff. She's with the dude from 50 Shades of Grey, Jamie Dornan. Yeah. And the rest of the film deals with Robin Hood having to train with Little John with stealing from the rich and giving back to the poor. And to do this, he has to go undercover under getting the respect from Sherry Nottingham, and in order to try to steal the money out of him.
Yeah, Little John basically does this plot saying, the best way to defeat the Nottingham and sever the Christianity crusades is cut it in half by stealing their money so they can't finance the war.
Yeah, I know.
And basically, then it could cause conflict between him and then the cardinal, which is the whole church, people who kind of run the country.
Yeah.
The Crusades is technically the church. Christians are running it, or Catholics, wherever the fuck they are. And basically, he wants to he says, let's cause conflict in between, and then it'll take the mind off of the war of Lil Jon's people, and they would go blah 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 at each other, and it would fuck everything up, and tear them down, and.
But all this going through, it becomes so fucking uninteresting to watch. I'm so, I really did not give a shit.
I was so,
bored with this.
It is ungodly boring. Throughout the story, the project design and stuff, the way that people costume design, these people are wearing modern clothes. I saw a button up that Robin Hood and a few people were wearing in this party that I have in my closet. That makes no goddamn sense to have modern clothes in this.
I felt like I really felt like I was watching Baz Luhrmann. If you know him, he was the guy who directed William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet from 1996.
Yeah.
It was almost like they could have went with that approach instead of making it, in this, it's like they were wanting to go for modern Robin Hood, but they're like, no, let's stick to the old format. Let's give them modern clothing. It was fucking stupid.
You can't get modern and take place back in 10,000 years ago.
Yeah.
It makes no goddamn sense at all.
Yeah.
So there's that problem.
But also the story structure itself, it's so fucking cliche and it's very predictable because, believe it or not, this movie is basically rips off a lot from Batman Begins, from the whole you remember in Batman Begins with the whole the Gotham being under crime waves and stuff, and you had the people revolting and things like that, and you also have a mass figure going becoming a symbol for the people. That's exactly what this is. That's what it rips off that angle of it.
Yeah, because they do this thing where people start putting these hoods around, saying, showing their respects, he's saving us, he's a hero, he's a martyr.
Because the whole movie, they played off like Robin Hood's like a fucking superhero because he wears a mask, and basically he tricks the sheriff of Nottingham thinking that Robin Hood is some other guy, and it's this is so cliche. This is so over. This has been used so many times in other movies.
Yeah, so it's unused product story, but it even takes unused product and it even manages to make it worse than most movies do, where they come off more standard.
Yeah.
This makes it even more fucking worse.
Yeah.
Than those standard stories. All right, so we got that. We got Little John, played by Jamie Foxx, who has an American accent half of the movie, and then
he's speaking in
Muslim the other.
Yeah, he's speaking an Arabic accent throughout the most of it. But there are times where his fucking his real voice slips out a lot.
Where he's training, which by the way, Robin Hood. This is supposed to be an origin story, but Robin Hood already knows how to do his superhero shit in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And Lil Jon trains him for like 2 seconds, and boom, he already knows how to do it. He just needed a better arrow. That made no fucking sense.
Yeah, I'm like,
and then Lil Jon in this scene, he starts kind of talking more urbanish, American. I'm like, okay, you were just had the Arabic, then you went from that with the kind of like a Muslim accent to fucking, yeah, that's right, Lil Jon, like how I just spoke.
Yeah,
I'm like,
what the fuck, man? And then it doesn't help either. The rest of the cast doesn't fare any better. Like Taron Egerton, I actually do like as an actor. And I like Jamie Foxx too as an actor too. They're such talented actors in this that they're so like their performances. It's like it's their first fucking movie. Like Taron in this movie, he's so fucking like full of himself, and he's shouting out lines that are just so poorly delivered.
Yeah, it's trying to be modern day fast trope. No, it's trying to be troped and saying fast one-liners, and they're horrible one-liners.
They are, yeah.
Because you have everybody throwing these like very weak one-liners, like,
and add a tone too. Because keep in mind, there are in-between scenes where while there are serious shit happening, they all of a sudden throw out one-liners that are supposed to be, for the
dark scenes where people are getting captured. You think they're going to get executed, and they're like, he goes. He says something like, "Oh, maybe tomorrow" or some shit. I'm like,
yeah.
How is that funny?
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know where the comedy, and everybody starts laughing in the theater, especially though the comic relief
Friar Tuck
preacher dude.
Friar
I'm
Tuck.
like, that guy
annoyed the piss out of me a lot, and his narration didn't help either.
His words were being like, he was trying to be like the quick quip one-liner guy, and nothing was funny.
Nothing, and not just that, but
in the parts where Lil Jon and in scenes with Lil Jon and Robin Hood doing like their like kicking ass and stuff, you have like the actor who plays Robin Hood saying one-liners with Lil Jon, or Lil Jon's like, "Hey, Ghost, now that's why I trained you right." I'm like, what the fuck?
And not just that, but and plus the actress who played Marion, she was terrible. And her and fucking Robin Hood don't have any chemistry that I'm supposed to buy. Because every time I see her in this fucking movie, I'm thinking like, okay, you know what I'm expecting? The way that she's dressed and everything, I'm like, where's that fucking Macy's logo around here? I'm pretty sure I could put that, because it's almost like they're in a Macy's commercial or some type of GQ cover.
I'll get to that in a second on the outfit, but yeah, they don't have no chemistry, and she plays off as this girl who follows him around when she finds out Robin Hood. Which, by the way, there's a part where Lil Jon tells her not to when Marion hears rumors that he's alive, Robin Hood survived the war.
Yeah.
Because he's written off as he died in the war, and he didn't.
Yeah.
She comes up to where their old house is, and Lil Jon goes, "No, don't say anything. We can't let her interfere. Just let her go on with her life.
Yeah.
And then let's do our thing." And then the next fucking scene, they're at a party, and she goes, "Oh, hey, how you doing, Robin Hood?" That was like her husband. You are not shocked that he's not dead?
Exactly. I'm like, what the fuck, man? And not just that, but the movie can't.
And then like she plays this cliche woman where you have the hero kicking ass and doing things. She goes, I'm like, oh my god, man.
It also doesn't help that they play off a fucking love triangle between her and the
love triangle,
which is
she gets with a guy who
is into politics and stuff
because he Robin Hood's declared dead, so you have the jealous new boyfriend with the old boyfriend, and it does this triangle.
It's basically if you know that story from the Odyssey by Homer. If you know the Odyssey by Homer, where you had Odysseus go out to war, and then he comes back and realizes that his wife has moved on. It plays off like that, but done fucking terribly.
Then, like, here's the part I want to get into. So the costume design we've already talked about.
Yeah.
But there's this part where they're at this fucking casino, and it looked like modern day casino. Now I could get that they do some shit back in the day, but this looked a little too modernized.
Yeah,
there was women wearing like Macy shit, and like somebody said in one review, it looks like in scenes like this that people just went and found dresses in their closet and then just put it on.
It felt like it was like watching, and I'm not going to compare the quality of the film to that, but I'm just saying it reminds me of that part off of Star Wars Last Jedi where they go to that fucking casino planet.
Well, with that futuristic though.
No, I'm saying on that level where it feels out of place, basically.
Well, even that, but that's more futuristic. This I don't even think casinos were even like in the thought. We're talking about BC times.
Well, yeah.
And they're fucking wearing modern day dresses and playing with dice and rolling dice and having spin wheels and shit like that. I'm like, this does not make any fucking sense at all.
That's what I'm saying. And plus,
and then not only that, Robin Hood, he just abruptly starts robbing people. It didn't take they didn't show like the training of getting there.
No.
He just knows how to kill everybody.
Yeah, and then and a lot of these
he doesn't even kill them. I see arrows going in through everybody's fucking chest in this movie, and they are told that everybody survived. He doesn't kill them.
Exactly. Not just that, but the action scenes themselves are just they're the poor man's version of trying to be like Zack Snyder with the whole slow motion shit. But even that's an insult to Zack Snyder's films, because at least, you know, they're trying to go with that whole slow mo shit where they're shooting arrows and shit, and it comes off as so tiresome. I've seen it done plenty of times in other films that are done better.
Here's the problem is because I guess that they didn't know how to choreograph fights in this thing. There's not actually a fight that's not in this film where it's not slow-mo. Everything, the action scene is a slow-mo. I guess it's for a cheap matter.
It is.
Yeah, it's being cheap.
And the CGI,
I've seen it done in other films where they do it like too much, but this film, every fight scene slow-mo.
It is, yeah. And it's all a lot of style. It lacks a lot of it too. Yeah. And the CGI doesn't help either, because the fucking arrows that are pointing out feels like, you know, something I would watch in like that.
The CGI was horrible.
Oh yeah,
film.
dude.
And not only that,
this is a theatrical film too.
Nottingham and some of like the landscape, you could tell it was a back screen.
It was, yeah.
A lot of scenes.
Don't even start about the fucking fire later on. That
God, the fire where they start.
Yeah, they start a fire in the street later on, and
you get the whole Robin Hood where he's all like, "All right, people, here I am. Let's rise above the occasion," and I'm like, Jesus, and this shit is getting so goddamn fucking painful. And it's like I said, the lines. There's a part where they end up, Robin Hood and them, they make this plan to blow up one of the things that's carrying all the money, and then they could rob the main villain in this film. Yeah. They shoot the fucking arrow, and Robin Hood shoots the arrow, and it blows the thing up, and so they can break in and get all the money. Martin, or whatever her name is, Marion is sitting right next to him, and she's all like, "Was that supposed to do that?"
Oh my God.
Lines are coming out in this film and it makes no sense. It's almost like Good Day to Die Hard, where they're like, where John McClane's McClane is saying, "What do we do next?"
Yeah,
that's what they are doing in this film.
God.
Where you have her sitting there like a goddamn parrot on his shoulders, like, was that supposed to happen? Is that next? What are we doing next?
That also, it doesn't help either that some of the other cringy lines they come up with later, especially what Robin had said. It's like, there's a part where he's talking to the sheriff of Nottingham about that he wants to, you know, be running shit and everything. There's a part where he's just like, "I'm tired of eating crumbs. I want to sit at the big boy table." And I'm like, oh my God.
You got people making lines like, "I came here to kick ass and take names all out of names," or some shit. I'm like, that would not been said in the BC times or whatever fucking years
Crusades,
ago. The Crusade times.
And not just that, but also I feel bad for the main guy that plays the villain. This Ben Mendelsohn.
Oh, he was.
I've seen him in other great movies where he plays the bad guy, but he's literally playing that same trope times 10, because he reminded me in parts where. He reminded me a lot like Jeremy Irons from Dungeons and Dragons, where he overacts, where he's either barking his lights out.
He's a cheap villain.
Or he's talking in a very soft manner, like you would see in every other cliched villain.
Here's my problem with his performance as the villain. 3/4 of this movie, he's supposed to be intimidating, but you have people who are outspoken, who should be outspoken, because you know damn well villains will beat the fuck out of peasants who are outspoken.
Yeah.
But there's peasants who are going to these rich parties, and it's like they're all associating even though they don't like him.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's hanging around peasants, and then abruptly at the end, then they make him fucking villainous. We're all like, "I'll kill anybody that walks near me," like, type motherfucker. By then it's too late because he dies quick.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, and that was a really cheap death too, because all they do was fucking hang him. I'm like, that was so.
And then what was the point of Little John getting captured and they play the sad music like he's gonna die, and then the next scene he's in the prison and he breaks out in 2 seconds.
He gets out way so easily. It's like he didn't even need to be there.
You can see there's so much missing.
Yeah, this movie is a colossal glob of scenes that are fucking chopped to shit. The action scenes that don't work, that are trying to be, all hip and fun, but they come across as fucking dull and so lazy.
And then get this. Speaking of lazy, now we got the main villain dead. It ends with the same fucking trope where the jealous boyfriend becomes the new villain.
Yeah, Jamie Dornan.
And by the way, shitty effects on the Two-Face look.
Yeah.
It looked like they sprayed fucking strawberry jelly on his face.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to indicate that maybe be weeks or months later. It looked like it just happened just seconds ago, and he's like, it's like he got hurt. Oh, I'm the king. Dun, 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 dun. I'm gonna talk. This all acts like it happened within mere minutes. I'm like, this director don't know what the fuck he's doing with this at all. And by then, dude, I had to run out of the theater because I about fucking walked out.
I was on the verge of almost falling asleep in this, and I fell asleep on the 2010 Russell Crowe version, but I couldn't do it with this one because as much as this one was just so uninteresting, I was like, no, I'll still keep myself awake.
I was bored with it beyond repair. And
you wanted to walk out.
Where I wanted to walk out and fall asleep, too, in the theater. But this movie gave me so goddamn bad headache that I was like, okay, I can't sleep either.
Yeah,
my head hurts.
It's so painful,
it's so fucking painful. I will tell you right now, this is the worst Robin Hood told story all Robin Hood's storytelling. This is the worst way you could have gone. And I'll tell you right now, I did not like King Arthur last year, but that was far better than this piece of shit.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is the worst Robin Hood film I've ever seen. Because as much as I hated the Russell Crowe version, there was still stuff in that film I kind of got into, despite how boring that movie was. And they at least took risks by doing a kind of a different spin on that story. This, they tried to go back to basics, but even that failed in every angle. To me, Robin Hood's one of those films, just stick with the Kevin Costner version.
Yeah, just stick with Kevin Costner, Men in Tights, for fun.
Or even go back to the Disney Fox one, things like that. Or stick with Arrow. That's modern Robin Hood.
The only thing I recommend out of this is throwing it in a goddamn fucking toilet and flush it. Because this movie was a piece of shit.
I'm agree with you, and with that, I'm giving this a fucking flat line on the Film Phreeks meter.
Yeah, it's a flat line on the Film Phreeks meter for me. I'm putting this in my top 10 worst.
It's in my top 10 worst as well.
This is I knew it was going to be bad, but that was uncalled for what the hell I watched.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, for those of you who have also seen Robin Hood 2018, let us know in the comments below of what you thought about it, and some of the other Robin Hood films as well. And if you like what you see here, you can feel free to like and subscribe to our channel, and check out some of our other reviews here and our website at filmphreeks.com, and we'll be seeing you in the next review. We'll see you later.
Later.